welcome to the Graduate Dentist Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Is that for people that don't know, you're a good friend, but also one of my mentors. I probably don't give you enough flowers for all that you teach me, but I think I very much alluded to you a lot of the times when I talk on the podcast and refer to like stories or things that you've taught me. And so it's nice to have you on. I was saying to you earlier today that one of the nice things about you being friends with me before coming on the podcast was that I remember the very first episode that I ever released. And I didn't really expect that you would listen to it, but I remember you listening to it and then just messaging me. And you're like, oh, I listened to your first episode. And you're like, oh, good job, it was really nice. I'd kind of forgotten what it was like to be a new grad, and listening to it was a good reminder. And I kind of thought, yeah, like what I wanted to dive into in this episode today is one, like your journey over the years,
Yep.
where you are now today, and then now being in a position where, yeah, you're mentoring young grads, people like myself, now getting into teaching as well, and kind of covering that whole story.
I think that's kind of like the whole purpose of the podcast, right? Is to give a leg up to new grads and new dentists who haven't had that much experience, haven't had that much exposure to procedures or clinics or just the dental world in general. And when you have these guests on that talk about the new grad experience, essentially, it reminds me of the struggles that I went through when I was a new grad. And even some of the struggles that I still face today, because some problems in dentistry just don't go away, right? You just deal with it a little bit better. And so I remember going through uni, I was okay with dentistry, with how much I liked it and how good I was with it. But I didn't think I developed like a passion or motivation or inspiration until I kind of discovered DPR. And for the new grads now, that's
Yeah.
Instagram, right?
Yeah,
So I'm
it
kind of
is, yeah.
showing my age now because it was DPR popping off.
When was DPR, I think?
It was when I was a student.
Okay.
It was in 5th year. So I was a part of DPR probably before 5th year. But I think in my 5th year, my final year of uni, people were starting to post stuff that I thought was absolutely mind-blowing. Bonded onlays. I was like, where was the retention form? We were still learning about the history of GV Black and extension for prevention and like doing amalgams and all of that.
I don't think it's all that different nowadays, though. Like we still learned GV Black principles, and I still did amalgam fillings in sim clinic and stuff.
Oh, really?
But I think, like you said, the exposure to it, like nowadays, there's a lot more of it through the world of Instagram and stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, whereas it was only just starting when
it was only just starting, or people were just posting about it, and there were not too many like long-term studies. My lecturers weren't talking about it at all, so it was very much a new concept.
Yeah.
And for me, seeing it for the first time on DPR, I was like, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah.
How is this even a thing?
Yeah.
Is this some woo-woo stuff that some new dentists are trialing and it's not proven yet? Like, what's going on here? But it definitely sparked a curiosity. And because these people were also doing bonded onlays, it kind of came hand in hand with nice dental photography as well. So these posts were, at the time, like stand out to me. Like they looked really nice, and the technology that they were using to fix up his teeth was like groundbreaking to me. And so that kind of spurred an interest for me to like kind of dive a little bit deeper into dentistry. But I was kind of just, a normal student, a normal person. Like I wouldn't say I had high aspirations or if I hated dentistry. I was just your average dental student. And then graduating, I just did normal dentistry for years. Drill and fill dentistry. I probably did 1 crown every 2 weeks. I was not like a standout high billing dentist that did rehabs or implants, anything like that, or ortho. And I was probably like that for like 5 years.
So when you say that, like as a 5th year, you saw all of that like pretty work online and it sparked like an interest, was it enough to get you to go want to look? Like, was that enough curiosity to go pursue that kind of stuff? Or was it like, oh, that's cool, but you were still doing like traditional crown preps and still doing the drill and fill? Like, was it enough to influence the work that you did in those early years?
So I'm one of those people where I wouldn't say I am like an absolute go-getter and I'm able to just see something or go to a course and learn something and then just by myself Monday morning, go into work and then just execute and try it straight away. I very much needed an environment where I had a mentor behind me that could bail me out or run me through the thing just before the case, specific to the case, so that I could execute and achieve like a predictable result.
Mm.
If I were to do it by myself, I would be way too scared not having that backup, not having, someone bail me out in case something went wrong, right? And um, going through uni and even now, a lot of more experienced dentists will go like, hey, look, you've just graduated. Just focus on doing the basics for a couple of years, And I took that to heart. I was like, get good at exos, like do good, decent fillings, like learn how to communicate and build rapport with your patients, like all of that sort of stuff. And I was still getting stuck on exos and like sometimes like a class 2 filling would get the better of me. And I was like, well, I'm struggling on these things still, maybe I shouldn't progress to the next thing first, right?
Yeah.
But life goes on, and when you're at a job for a while, you kind of fall into a rhythm. And I reckon I fell into a rut for a few years where I was kind of just doing the same stuff. I saw the work that was being posted online. I knew what was possible, but I guess the momentum or the inertia of just being stuck in that same rhythm got the better of me. And I never was able to really get out of that rut until, 5 years out of uni. I was like, I kind of really need to do something about it. I really felt an itch to just do something about my situation. Saw a job post on DPR. Yeah, right. Spending a lot of time on there. Applied for it, got the job. And the reason why I wanted to apply for that job is because they were offering mentorship, right? And I was like, if I get mentorship from these guys, that's going to change my trajectory. I'll be able to do the cases that I want to do because I'll have a safe environment to do so. And I felt like that's very much what I needed in order to be able to progress. When I landed the job, I kind of got all of that. I was kind of expecting to learn how to do full mouth rehabs, nice composites, super aesthetic stuff, cosmetics. But I was never really interested in surgery because for the longest time as a new grad, I sucked at exos. I know you can probably relate, right?
100%, yeah.
And the thing about an exo is like the tooth's either out or it's not out. It's pass or fail. And I was failing a lot more than I'd like to admit.
So did you often get help with those exos?
Yeah, for sure. So boss would have to bail me out. She was fantastic at exos. Things seemed to just pop out for her. And I was like, I feel like I'm doing all the same things and it's not translating, right? Because for exoing, I still very much think it's a feel thing. To teach feel and transfer that skill set to someone else, that's a really difficult thing.
I think exo is one of those things where it's like, I think it's hard to go to a course and for them to teach you how to do extractions. I think it's one of my biggest pieces of advice for new grads early on. Same thing with like endo and exo, I think them two in particular, where people are like, oh, I suck at endo, I suck at exos, I need to go do a course on like extractions. But like, doesn't even matter if you're doing on models or doing on a cadaver and like watching someone else do it, it will never beat actually like feeling it yourself. And I was recently doing an episode with C, and he was just saying like, yes, like exos is one of the things that gives us so much stress, and it's the one thing that people often get bailed out for. And yes, you've got your patient on the other end, but like those last 15 minutes of you really struggling, but then figuring out the angle that you were meant to like be luxating it, or like how much you had to gutter it, or where to put your forceps, the pressure, like those last moments when you actually deliver it are like where the most of the learning comes from, right?
Yeah, I've actually never thought about it that way, but you're right. The fact those last 15 minutes of you struggling and finally solving the problem, that's the light bulb moment.
It is, right?
Exactly.
But so often we panic or like, and it's hard because the patient's on the other end. It's probably the one procedure that gives people the most stress. And like, we're naturally human. So you're just like, no, we've been at it for 2 hours. I'm going to get like my boss to come bail it in. But you lose that learning moment from there, right? Yeah. Building onto that mentorship, you obviously had someone there that was able to bail you out, right? And obviously a good enough work environment that you stayed there for 5 years. What was it about this job offer that, like, mentorship is such a buzzword, and maybe it's different from when you applied for that job to what it is now, but like everyone's always talking about mentorship now and throwing it around. It's almost a little bit overused. Perhaps there are like false promises or that come associated with it. Like, what was it that they offered? And I want you to also, because I feel like I've heard this story and I've heard both perspectives of it as well. What was your attitude going into that job prospect?
Yeah. So the thing that drew me to it, even though, it seems like every ad is talking about mentorship, is that it was from a fairly large group. And I felt like if this group's got, a large group, it means that there's probably some level of success to their formula of teaching dentists that they're able to expand and grow in such a way. And thinking along those lines, I'm like, well, I'm not progressing here in this job here, and it's been 3 years of zero progression essentially.
Mm.
Well, what's the harm in jumping into a new job and just trialing it out?
Like from what I'm gathering and like from when you've told me like this story in the past as well, it's that you weren't really getting much of that mentorship to begin with, right?
Yeah,
But even though they're advertising it and looking specifically for new grads,
yeah,
I think one of the perhaps it was like your key standout trait or what made your application stand out was your willingness to just be broken down and
oh,
rebuilt, right?
yeah. Those
And
were the almost
was
exact
that the
words.
words? I
Those were the
remember because I
almost
remember
exact
you
words.
telling
Yeah,
me it, and it stood out, and that's why I wanted you to like kind of dive into that because I was like,
yeah,
wow, I remember you telling me this story and that really standing out, that humility, I guess, to being like, I'm 5 years out, like,
yeah,
but I still feel like a new grad, or even if I'm not a new grad, I'm willing to kind of just be broken down and rebuilt. And I think a lot of practice owners are kind of looking for someone who is coachable and teachable. They often say that with looking for potential candidates. And obviously, I think this is important for grads nowadays who are like in that job hunting phase at the moment, right? It's just like they're always like, oh, what does my practice owner like? What are they looking for? And they always say, like, we speak to so many practice owners, and they're like, attitude and your coachability and your willingness to take on feedback. And I think that was kind of one of those that was like the attitude that you brought in. Is that right?
yeah. That
Yeah.
was yeah.
Yeah.
Now that you reminded me, like
Yeah.
I almost clearly remember my whole cover letter now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I almost felt like I was hired entirely just off that
Mm,
cover letter.
mm,
Um, they kind of gave a rough description of what they were after, and you're right. They were
mm,
mostly after a new grad. There was
mm,
maybe like 2, 3 years out of uni.
mm,
So not someone super experienced, but
mm,
someone who was young enough, but and somewhat experienced enough they could do stuff on their own,
mm,
but then could be coached into something more.
mm,
And me looking at that, going like, well, I haven't improved in 3 years, so my skill level is almost like that of a new grad. And the only difference is, I guess, my mindset. I don't feel like I'm experienced. My mindset and my skill set is almost like that of like a recent grad.
mm,
So I'm like, I know I've got 5 years of experience. I feel like I've kind of got a handle on, my basics here. Like I can do a half decent filling. I can exo most teeth, like
mm.
maybe except for complex wisdom teeth and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But talking about like high level cosmetics, veneers and like full mouth rehabs and
Mm,
implants and
mm,
ortho and stuff like that. Like I really didn't have a handle on that at all.
mm, mhm.
So trying to show them a bit of humility, going like, hey, look, I'm basically am a new grad.
Yeah.
And I
Will
know
drop.
I know I'm 5 years up. I'm
Mm,
willing to completely break myself down and
mm,
rebuild myself back up again
mm.
to become a better dentist and also a better fit for your clinic as well.
Yeah.
So I was hoping for it to be like almost like a win-win situation where I'm like, I'm willing to do this
Yeah.
for you
Mhm.
so that I can also benefit and
Mm.
improve from your mentorship in your clinics
Mm, mm,
as
mm, mm.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you were saying that, like, I guess you kind of what drew you to the job, this is circling back to what you were saying, was the fact that, oh, it was more complex work, maybe a bit more cosmetic work, maybe a bit more of that rehab work, but you weren't thinking about surgery at all.
No,
But
exactly.
you are predominantly a surgical
Yeah,
dentist
yeah.
now to quite a high level where you do complex, like, surgical and pretty much do all of it, right?
Mm.
Like implants, All-in-X, soft tissue grafting, like the whole lot. How did you go from someone that didn't even consider surgery, who hated extractions, to, yeah, landing in that job where you weren't even taking on that job because of surgery? Like, how did that all happen?
It's pretty crazy. You're right,
Mm,
because being coming from a background where I sucked at exos and
yeah.
therefore was kind of scared of surgery, it's
Mm,
weird that I'm kind of in this position now.
mm,
And so I definitely leaned into more composite work, like
mm,
cosmetics and stuff. That was kind of the direction I was leaning towards because I
mm,
felt like that was more of a strength of mine.
mm.
But mentorship comes when mentorship comes, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I met Alvin,
Mm,
who's one of my biggest mentors in
mm,
dentistry,
mm,
that I started progressing my career, right?
mm,
And Alvin's wheelhouse is implants.
mm.
And so if I was going to go under Alvin's wing, well, I'm learning implants.
How did that come about though?
Yeah.
Was it that you joined the practice and they were like, "Here, Alvin's your mentor," or like, how did you guys both end up developing that mentor-mentee relationship?
Yeah. It was kind of weird because after I had submitted my cover letter,
Mm,
I got called in for an interview
mm,
just to check if the vibes were
mm,
okay, I assume.
mm,
But when I was getting interviewed, the way that they were speaking to me, the practice owners speak to me, it was
mm,
like I had already been hired.
mm,
And by the end, they were like showing me around the clinic and everything, as if I had been hired and they were just introducing everyone.
Yeah.
And at the end, they were like, oh, have you done many implants?
Mm.
And I go like, oh, like 8 over the 5 years I've been doing dentistry, right? Like it's probably like less than like 1 or 2 a year. And the easiest of cases, right? And they're like, oh, we think we might have someone that can teach you stuff. And me just trying to be open-minded, I was like, oh, okay, not what I came for,
Yeah.
but oh, okay, you know,
Yeah.
like I'll keep an open mind on this.
Sure.
And then got hired, started the job, and a few weeks later, they're like, hey, one of our senior dentists, Alvin, he's got an implant case. Because you've just started with us, your books aren't super full. Do you want to go watch him? And I was like, sick. I would love to go see it.
Yeah.
Like anything. I
Yeah.
would love to go see anything that's like somewhat considered major or complex dentistry, right?
Yeah.
So walked in, Alvin's just like, oh, hey, I heard you're the new guy. I'm going to be doing a case. He doesn't quite run me through it properly, but he is talking as he's working. And I just remember just being like gobsmacked how he placed an implant immediately
Yeah.
and put a fixed temporary on top using the CEREC.
Mm.
It was kind of ingenious. He had scanned the mouth prior to. They had designed a blob of a tooth on the CEREC machine,
Yeah.
milled out that blob of a tooth in ceramic, drilled a hole through it, and then after he had placed the implant, stuck a temporary cylinder onto that CEREC through that hole. And I was like, did not think that was possible, like
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
The aesthetic result was pretty good. It might as well have been the final tooth, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like it was like pretty damn decent. And I was just like, oh my God, I found my mentor, you know? And then I remember a few times, pretty soon after that, a few months later, Alvin really took me under his wing, started doing a few cases. And I just remember this moment so clearly where we just finished a case and I felt like I'd just done an okay job. It wasn't anything amazing, but I remember Alvin walking into the lunchroom and then proclaiming to everyone, it's like, I found my protege. I was like, oh, I think I found my mentor. Yeah. So that was like, I remember that moment so clearly. I'm getting like a little bit emotional about it because I was like, oh, I feel like
things fell in place.
Yeah, and I was stuck for so long and I was wanting something for so long
Yeah.
that him saying that, I felt like I was found.
Yeah.
I had found someone. Yeah.
That's really nice though. Is we're literally just talking about this like earlier, right? About that mentor-mentee relationship, how it's very special. Like everyone's looking for it, but you can't force it. And it's kind of like with any relationship, any friendship, whatever it is, a mentorship is a relationship. And this is something you said to me very early on. And I think I've alluded to it in the previous episode where you're like, yeah, like I'll mentor you, but I kind of got to like you, right? Like the vibes have to be right for that to work. Like you have to see eye to eye. It's got to be the right match of personality, the right match of pace. Like so many things kind of have to fall in line. And it's one of those things that you can't force. And, in the same way that you entered that workplace and you're like, I'm open to mentorship. But like, as you said, it's a really big group. You could have been taken under anyone's wing, but it just so happened that like Alvin was your person. And it worked and it went both ways and you just like clicked and connected. And from there, obviously there's that exponential growth. I think there's a lot more to your journey with Alvin from there. Those obviously just like those early days. But I think there are a lot of parallels as well because, fast forward to however many years later, you've obviously been working there for a little while and then you've now become one of the senior dentists. And I'm very fortunate to work, I guess, within this group like once a week. And on that one day of the week, like I get to work alongside you. But it's almost like, no, it wasn't assigned of so-and-so is going to be your mentor. It's just like, Eric, you're going to be really lucky you've got all these senior dentists around you who can look after you. And you kind of just, I don't know what happened, but it just ended up being like, oh, I clicked with you. And it was maybe the way that you taught or your attitude, that right kind of mix of personalities where I'm like, I'm inherently a cautious person and a bit of a scaredy cat. And then, one of our other clinicians is like, oh, he's a little bit more like careful, a little bit more diligent, but that doesn't work for me because it ends up freaking me out even more. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to touch it, right? Whereas you'd just be like, Erica, just do it. And there'd be times where you would just like book cases into my books where you're just like, Erica, help me out with this, or Erica, I'm going to get you to do these or do this. And then you're like, okay. There are so many times where it's like 5 minutes before the appointment, you're just like, okay, A, B, C, D, like this is what you're going to do. And I'm like, I don't think I can do it. And you're like, I wouldn't be making you do it if I didn't think you could do it, right? And it was kind of that what I needed as like an inherently cautious person, just having someone being like, just go do it. And I always say, I'm like, I do it with the confidence of knowing that. And you always say, it's like, if you can't do it or anything goes wrong, like, I'm here, I'm next door, I'll fix it. And it's through that I guess, yeah, I have a little bit more of that courage to take it on. So I haven't had this is my mentor, and I haven't been received that this is my protege.
It's
Coming, yeah.
it's coming.
It's coming. I need to earn it, right? I've not earned it yet.
There's a lot that comes with leaving university and properly adulting that no one really prepares you for. As a new grad with an income and newfound responsibilities we don't know what to do with, managing finances can be really tough. That's where JS Medical and Dental Finance comes in. Specializing in financing options tailored to medical and dental professionals, JSMDF is a completely independent broker dedicated to finding the best bank and lender for your unique situation. Led by the incredible Jason Savage, who personally came to my rescue, worked his magic, and helped me secure a loan before I even started working. JSMDF is committed to supporting you throughout your personal and professional journey in whatever way you need. Whether you're looking to buy a house, a car, a practice, or pay off that year-long CPD course you signed yourself up for, JSMDF offer comprehensive advice tailored to your short and long-term plans. Their goal is to be with you from day one and thoroughly understand your financial needs and provide solutions that best work for you. And so if you're looking for some advice or you simply want to explore your options, get in touch with Jason and his team. A big thank you to JSMDF for helping make being an adult that extra bit easier, and for supporting the graduate dentist community.
You've grown a lot in those 5 years,
Yes.
like from not being super confident to then really fast tracking your, I guess, surgical journey. Like, what happened after that point?
I think it was the fact that I was fortunate to have the mentor, but also to be in a clinic where we do a lot of that high-end work.
Yeah.
So it was the repetition on top of having good mentorship that was like the deadly combo that allowed me to progress.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, I started going to a lot of CPD again.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I was going to CPD, but it was almost like rehashing stuff that I already knew, and in the hopes that there'd be one particular composite veneer course where it would just like catapult me. But going after course to course to course of the same composite veneer stuff, like I don't think it was. I needed a mentor that could do that for me, and unfortunately, I never met that mentor. But for implants, which is a little bit unexpected, I met Alvin as my mentor, and then we ended up traveling a lot to then further both our skills,
Yeah.
right? Because Alvin's been doing implants for many more years than me, but even he felt like there was new stuff coming out, and he wanted to learn about it as well. And I was like, well, if Alvin's going, I might as well go with him too.
Yeah.
And because we're such a big group,
Yeah.
we end up having a little boys group of like a bunch of the
Yeah,
dentists,
yeah.
like going overseas.
Yeah.
Like we've been to Singapore together, Malaysia, all over America, New Zealand. Like we've literally traveled like half of the world in order to be able to learn like new techniques from all these like awesome dentists, right? All these specialists and I guess like trailblazers of the field.
But because you were all working together, I guess it was like, I think it's one thing being like an associate and like learning stuff and taking it back, and then like, can you actually implement it, or do you have the confidence of like people around you that have also learned that similar technique or that same philosophy, who are also able to like brainstorm it with you, or like, are there enough of you and like executive decision makers where you guys can then like introduce that within the workflow,
Oh, yes.
right?
So
Yeah.
that's where we're also really lucky again,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
because we work in a large group and because these senior dentists do have influence over the practice owners, who are also very open-minded to new treatment, buying new equipment, implementing new techniques or procedures into the clinic, whatever we learn overseas,
Yeah.
if we feel like there's benefit to our patients and to the clinic, then we just have to have a quick chat with the practice owners. And thankfully, they're very open-minded that they're like, hey, look, if you genuinely think this is going to, one, increase our bottom line, but also be a benefit to your patients, then by all means, buy the equipment and do it, you know? And it wasn't just about getting the equipment as well. The fact that we are bouncing ideas off each other, that we go like, oh, like I've got this case coming up. Do you remember what that guy at the lecture said? You know, and we kind of got this little like talk group here where we're kind of egging each other on and giving each other advice. And it's like we're all of us are working on the same case together. It's just that one of us is the one that's actually
But
executing.
there are times when you guys go in and like help each other and like you guys work on cases. There's like I feel like it's very collaborative, hey?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes like maybe I'll take care of like maybe a more delicate soft tissue part, and then someone else will come and go like, you know, they're helping out with it, but then they'll take over and maybe do like the rehab part or whatever else part, right? So we all have our like strengths and weaknesses, but I think all of us have a pretty solid foundation. So at this point, because it's been a number of years of doing that now, most of us are pretty solid in most of those areas now. So we don't do that stuff as much, but occasionally
Yeah.
a case will come up and we're
Yeah.
like, hey guys, like kind of stuck here. What do you reckon we should do here? So we're still bouncing ideas off each other here and there for obscure cases that come up once in a while as well.
Yeah, and I kind of want to bring that back because I think some people might listen to that and be like, okay, cool story, bro. Like,
Yeah.
that's great that you work in an environment
Of
where,
course.
like, you guys you have that ability and you all do high level work, and like the senior dentists have that, you know, influence and that ability to make decisions. But if we kind of draw a parallel, again, I'm going to interject with like my own perspective, but like, obviously I get to work 1 day a week within this group of practices where there's a little bit more of that complex work, but I also work in just like day-to-day general dentistry, like family dentistry. And one thing, and I tell you about this as well, like one of the beauties that's happened, particularly over the last year or so, is we've started doing a lot more like in-house training sessions
Yeah.
that's really brought our group of dentists together. And we're all, I would say, like relatively recent grads. Like we're a young group of clinicians, but because we do like these in-house training sessions together and we invite, because like you've come and taught us a few times as well, right? But it's that same kind of, like in the same way that you guys went traveling together to learn something,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we have someone come talk to us and teach us something. And it's like twofold. One, you guys learn about a concept together, so you're all across the board, like on the same page about a concept. But two, it's just that camaraderie of like, you become close to one another and it creates that safe space of like, oh, we can collaborate. Because I think oftentimes it's very easy to go to a workplace, and most of the time when you're working, you're so busy with your own patients that you just go to work and it's just like, oh, morning. And then at the end of the day, okay, bye. And you don't actually get to
Yeah,
chat
that's
much. And a lot of people, I think, go to work and that's kind of their relationship with the other dentists. But I figured out like, actually by having like doing courses together, or even just like having dinner together and like having those non-clinical hour get-togethers, you create a lot more of that collaborative working environment. And so I see it in my general practice now where it's like, oh, if I've got a wisdom tooth that I don't particularly want to take out, I know that I can send it to one of the other dentists to do. Or, if they've got something that they want my opinion on, like they'll send it to me or shoot me a message. And we also know that like, if anything happens or any one of us gets stuck or we're not at work that day and one of our patients comes back with an issue or needs a review or something's broken or something's not quite right, you know that like another dentist will look at it, be on the same page, share the same philosophy, and you know that one, they're not going to throw you under the bus, but two, like they're going to really take care of your patient. And so maybe, I guess, like went on a bit of a tangent, but like the bottom line or like the message from it is just like the beauty of collaborating with the team around you and like doing courses together and like
Yeah.
learning together, because this is us on like a small scale,
Yeah.
but then like me listening to you share these stories is like, it's that on like a big level, right?
I often say on the podcast that the more I do, the more I realize just how little I know, and how dentistry is just one of those careers where you never stop learning. But let's be real, getting the right training can be expensive, time consuming, and sometimes just straight up overwhelming. That's where Ripe Global comes in. Founded by Dr. Lincoln Harris, Ripe Global is completely changing the way that we learn. They offer immersive, hands-on training that actually fits into your life. Whether it's through improving your preps, getting faster with composites, or tackling more complex cases, you'll be learning from some of the best clinicians in the world without having to take time off work or spend thousands on travel. And so if you're serious about upskilling and boosting your confidence in the clinic, check out Ripe Global today. Hit the link in our show notes and let's start learning smarter, not harder.
I guess it can be hard to relate to
Mm.
because most clinics aren't that large,
No, yeah.
don't have that group, may
Mm.
not have like regimented in-house
Mm.
mentoring. And so I do think it's hard when new grads are asking for mentorship. They're kind of looking for something like this, right? And there's not many places that do it, and not everyone can get, a job that's like this.
Yeah.
And so there are some dentists outside of our group that do ask for, I guess, some kind of mentorship or hand-holding or something
Mm.
like that. And I do help them out. So if they're, we've got a close enough relationship, we're kind of like friends at this point. There are times where I kind of like locum out to certain clinics. And sometimes it's just me doing complex work that they don't really want to do or don't do much of. But other times there might be a dentist at one of those clinics who goes, oh, hey, I kind of want to get into implants, or I kind of want to do crown lengthening, or I kind of want to do something that's a little bit more surgically related, and they're not confident with doing it. They're like, hey, would you mind coming in to the clinic and helping me on a day off? We'll line up the patient when it's convenient for you. And then you can come in, and we're literally going to be in the same room together doing these procedures together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And usually the night before, we're doing a little bit of prep work. We're like, hey, send me photos, send me the x-rays. We'll walk you through step by step exactly what to do, any potential complications or troubles you might run into so that we can troubleshoot on the fly. And if there's something we haven't discussed and it happens in real time in the clinic, well, I'm just going to take over for a bit, fix up whatever needs to be fixed, and then I'm going to hand the tools back over to you and you just crack on again and finish off the case.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going to try and let them do as much as possible so they get that experience. I haven't completely bailed them out, right? I lost the last 15 minutes of the excerpt. So they can get as much hands-on as possible to have those light bulb moments, to have those moments of growth, right? And have those epiphanies. Like, oh, that's what he meant, or that's what they meant when they talked about this in this course. Like, and actually learn and I guess like internalize those things.
It reminds me of I think my very first patient that I did do socket grafts for. Actually, this was a really interesting case. I mean, this has been a really special case that's still like ongoing.
Yeah.
But this was, I guess, one of those situations where it was a patient in my general practice and he walks in, he's got like this huge treatment plan and like we just hit it off, like got along really well. He's like, I want you to be my dentist. But I'm like, I can't do this work for you.
They're
like,
the best patient.
He's the best
They're the best
patient.
patients,
Absolutely. You've always so like the full story. It's like obviously he wants all this work done. I'm like, this is so beyond my skills. I would love to be able to look after you. Like this is the work that I aspire to be able to do, but it's a bit too complex for what I can do, but also within our practice where it's very general. We don't necessarily do a lot of like complex, or at least to the level of his complexities. But I said that, okay, on my Thursdays, I work at a different group of practices where there are a lot of other senior dentists. And yeah, we just kind of talked about it. And he's just like, you know what, like I'd be more than happy to be part of your journey. So many times you've watched him say these things to me in person. He's like, you got to learn somewhere, Eric, all right? He's like, I'm happy to be part of that journey with you, just to do whatever I need to. And so he's been an incredible case where like we did all these like socket, he had all these teeth that needed to be extracted. We did all these socket presses on him, and he was like the patient that I learned to do them on, like under your guidance. And I remember it was a really good case because it was like multiple teeth in a row that needed to be grafted. It was my first time doing it. And it was great because the patient also knew that I was learning. And so you could be quite open about this is what you need to do. Okay, do this. And you're very much like over my shoulder doing it. But I had like this clear memory of like, I think we were suturing one of them. And then, do you remember?
I remember the clear amount of panic where you paused for a second.
Yeah.
And I look over your shoulder to see what the problem was. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, because I think I did it. And then I think I tied a knot or something. And then it snapped.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh. Alan. And then you're like, oh, okay. And you took over. I have no idea what you did. But you just like looped it through. You did something. And then you just like, okay, it's fixed. Continue. And I think maybe that's like that kind of, that theme that I was saying, that sentiment of like, give it a go. If you can't do it, like, I'll be here, I'll fix it. And then continue. And then I think I took a bit long time and you're like, all right, move aside. Let me hurry this along.
I can't remember. Were we running late that day? We must have been running late, or I had some patients booked afterwards.
Yeah.
I was like, kind of need to speed this up.
But it's also the same thing. It's like at the end of the day, it's just like, it's wonderful that you've got a patient that's willing to go through it, but they are a person on the other end. You also can't spend forever on them, right? But it was a really great example of like learning. But yeah, kind of like what you were saying and alluding to, that it's nice to see it's like you're in a position where you got that mentorship, but now you're on the other end where you're able to offer the mentorship, not within our own group, but I think through the beauty of Instagram and, maybe in replace of DPI now, like you're the person that posts cool cases, and then you have these young dentists reach out and they're like, hey, Alan, can you actually come help me out with this crown lengthening case, or, with these implants or a sinus lift or whatever it is. And I think that's helpful because we have so many young dentists, like so many of them, who will message me or like message on our Discord or ask, like, when we do these like podcasts in person, where they're like, what happens if I'm in a practice where there is no senior dentist that does the work that I need to? Like, I need to do crown lengthening on this, but no one does it within my group. Or I need to do a sinus lift, but no one in my group does this. And like, doesn't mean I therefore don't offer this service to my patient. Or yes, I guess there's always the option to like refer the patient to a specialist, but do they necessarily want to go through that process or pay the fees to go through that process? So I guess a really wonderful kind of middle ground is like, do you have the connection of a dentist that works elsewhere who's willing to come in to organize it, and so that you can still offer that service to the patient, and like win-win-win for everyone, right?
Yeah.
You get to do the work, someone gets to learn from it, patient gets the treatment. It kind of works out well, right?
Yeah. It
Mm.
kind of just happened. Like, I think
It wasn't your intention,
yeah,
right?
no, it kind of just worked out that way. Like at the clinics that I was sort of doing locum work at, like one of the dentists like, oh, do you reckon I could learn implants? I was like, of course.
Yeah,
This person had already done like an implant course,
yeah.
but it's one of those things where you do a course and then, Monday morning you're like, I don't have, the kahunas to
Yeah.
actually like do a case like this. I kind of
Yeah.
need someone to back me.
Yeah.
Just like I was when I was a new grad. Like
Yeah.
I'd done maybe like 3 or 4 like basic implant courses, and still after years had only placed 8 implants before joining this bigger group, right? And so for him, I could very much understand where he was coming from when he really wanted to do implants. Had done this course, spent a fair bit of time and money on it, but then still didn't feel confident, and very much related to that. I was like, yeah, let's line up an easy case, like a slam dunk case,
Yeah.
and I'll literally be right there assisting you. And if I have to, I'll jump in and take over. We really have to. And it ended up being a very good experience for him, and he's kind of gotten a little bit of traction on it now. So I think that's been really good. And then, the next dentist asked me, and then we did a bit of in-house like lecturing and mentoring with you, and some of the like the dentists from your group have asked me to. Like it was this morning
Yeah.
that we did an implant and a sinus lift together, right? Just having that where within your own group you don't have something, but if you can reach out to someone who can potentially do something like that with you, I think that'd be really good. But as a new grad,
Yeah.
I think one thing you'll need to sort of be mindful of is asking the practice owner
If it's something.
if that's okay, because not everyone's going to be okay with a strange dentist
Yeah.
walking into the clinic that you have no relationship with, to then work on a patient that's ultimately going to be staying at your clinic, right? And if there is a complication, like what happens, right?
Yeah, and it's like, it's cool, right? It's like that. I was gonna say, like, you putting this out and you manifesting it, right? Like, you're gonna have so many people sliding into your DMs, like, "Hi, Dr. Allen, will you help me with this case?" Right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the double-edged sword of social media, where you also got to be careful who it is. It's like, yeah, they might post cool cases, but you kind of have to vet them as well, and I think that's hard.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe we say this as like, there are options out there, but like, you kind of don't want. How do we say this? Like,
Yeah.
people also have to be cautious of just like, okay, don't just go messaging any random
That's right.
online and inviting them into your practice and into your clinic. And maybe your piece of advice there is good, where it's like, have a chat with your practice owner about it. Maybe you guys can look into it more and like do your research or figure things out to see if it's actually a good fit and right arrangement for everyone involved. Moving on, like, well, building on that, what do you feel like mentorship has taught being on the other end?
Yeah. I think you were kind of mentioning it earlier, how
Yeah.
when I was listening to the early podcasts,
Yeah.
those stories reminded me of when I was a new grad,
Mm.
right? And those memories are still fresh in your mind because you remember your failures pretty clearly, especially when you're a new grad and you have no idea what you're doing. And mentoring, especially with surgical work, me learning a lot of the surgical skills that I have was only a few years ago when I met Alvin. Things really skyrocketed, right? So me literally seeing them in real time struggle with the exact same things that I struggle with, like raising a flap cleanly and quickly. like that was something I struggled with for at least a few cases before I started getting like half decent at them, right? And you see people struggle just raising a simple flap, and you're like, oh, this is like almost a universal experience, right? And it just reminds me of me as a new grad, or even like a more recent grad, just learning a new skill. Like every time you learn a new skill, you're gonna face your struggles. There's always gonna be a learning curve. But like anything in life, like the more you do it, the more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. But you also want to do it in a safe manner, because at the end of the day, you're still working on a human, right? And so just mentoring just reminds me of that, and it keeps me grounded and humble in a way. But also, I guess it's one of those things where you kind of hear that cliche where, like when you start teaching something, you learn yourself as well. So it reminds me of the lessons that I've learned. I think for a period of time when I was doing, getting more and more into implants, I was kind of doing stuff and doing them correctly almost by accident. It was like intuitive. But when someone asked me why I did it the way that I did, I couldn't explain it to them very
Yeah.
concisely or clearly. But when I was forced to teach it, I had to reorganize it in my mind in such a way that it was easily understood by a newbie who had never done it before.
Mm.
And so the benefit I found out of teaching for myself personally was being able to explain how to do a procedure a lot more clearly and concisely and like straight to the point. And coming from a perspective of where I remember what it was like to be a new grad and have no idea, keeping that perspective in mind, it just helped me be able to explain things better, you know?
Yeah, I actually relate to that because like earlier this year, like within our like general practice, we hired new grads. And I remember talking to you about this. I was like, oh my God, it was this moment where I was like, I was conflicted because and when I've tried to pinpoint what the feeling I had was, and it was my brother Paul that explained it to me, and he's just like, it's because you've always been the younger sibling. Like you've always been the youngest child. And for the very first time in your life, it was just like, what do you mean you're having another one? Right? Like, what do you mean you're hiring other grads, right? And I wouldn't say like a crisis, but it was definitely like a moment. Like this would have been this time last year when my boss Jeff said, look, we're going to be hiring these new grads. I realized that I had to step it up because I was no longer the baby dentist in the clinic. And it really got tested when one of my new grads, like Kiba, like who I work very closely with, she'd come to me for advice, right? And she'd be like, oh my God, Erica, what do I do here? I was like, and you look around, I'm like, oh, I'm the most senior dentist.
It's like you're the adult now. She's the baby now. Yeah, you have to look after her.
100%. So I'm like, oh, I'm the adult now. So I have to make the decision. And I think I was terrible. And it's something I'm still learning, but perhaps I take a page from your book, right? Because I'll find that she'll ask me a question and then I'll be like, oh, maybe you can do this, or maybe we'll do this. Or like, there's a lot of maybes, or like, it depends. And there's a lot of uncertainty, or I'll do something. She's like, oh, why do you do this? I'm like, I don't know, I just do it. Or you do it because it's just how you figured it out. Is it always necessarily the right way or not? You don't know. But when you're forced in the position to help someone else out or to impart knowledge onto someone else, you feel that responsibility very. Maybe it's like raising children or something where you're just like, I need to make sure whatever I'm teaching them is right, or I don't want to be misguiding them, or I don't want to be telling them the wrong thing. And I very quickly learned, like particularly with working with Hiba, it was putting myself in her shoes, and I was like, when did I learn the most, or like what do I appreciate the most from my mentors? And it was being able to go to them and being someone who was like indecisive and not confident and scared and overthinking and worrying, was being able to go to someone and for them to be grounded and for them to have clarity and to just say, this is what you should do.
Yeah, 100%.
And just that like, oh, okay, you're everywhere. And to have someone just like, this is what you need to do. And I remember learning that from you because it'd be like, oh my God, Allan, this has happened. What do I do? And you're just like, 1, 2, 3, 3A, 3B. And I'm like, oh, okay, go back and do it. And it's kind of what I'd learned to do with Hiba. And so I remember her like this, I remember it was like one of those messages that she'd sent me after I helped her out with a case once. And then she's like, oh, thank you so much for like helping me. And I said, no, thank you for letting me help you, because you're teaching me to be a better dentist through all of this.
Is
It's
he about
nice,
your
right?
protege?
No.
She found Erica
Maybe,
Gemma. So
right?
yeah.
Maybe. But it's nice, right? As you said, it's like humbling, it's reflective. As you said, it's like, I think as dentists, we're very critical of ourselves. And it's like, oh, I'm not good enough. I should be this, I should do that. But then kind of like you have to take a moment and look back and like, oh, you have come so far. And for you to reflect on being a new grad that was really scared and thinking of all these things to now be in the position of actually being able to help others, hey?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a lot.
I don't know why I thought of this, but
Mm.
you saying that, I guess, coming so far kind of remind me of like the concept of failure and then learning from that and then growing as a clinician. And I remember when I was doing a talk for your group of dentists there, I can't remember who it was.
I think it was me.
Was it you or was it Nick or Ping?
Yeah.
But they brought up like, oh, do you have any photos of your failures?
Yeah.
Because we had kind of finished going through all my regular content and I was
Yeah.
kind of like, we had some leftover time. I was scrambling for like content to like
Yeah.
fill in the time.
Yeah.
And then someone I was like, does anyone, want to see or talk about anything? Like, do you have any photos of your failures? And I remember having a moment where I was like, crap, I don't really have too many photos of my failures. And I remember what I said in the moment was something along the lines of, I don't have many photos of my failures because it's hard to pull out a camera and almost like immortalize something that you did wrong,
Yeah. 100%.
right? And I remember as the words came out of my mouth, I was like, crap, I should take photos of my failures as hard as it is. As sucky it is to take a photo of your own failures and your patient's probably a little bit upset and you're probably upset at yourself, to then whip out a camera and then immortalize it and almost frame it on a computer screen when you open up the photo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts a lot.
Yeah.
But you learn so much from it. And I regret not taking more photos of my failures because I felt like maybe I could have learned a lot more. But not only that, if I had those photos to the group of dentists that I was teaching at the time, I could have shown them that and they could have avoided the same mistakes that I did as well. And so it would have been like a very pass it forward kind of moment if I had just taken the time to do that. But it's even now, even after realizing that, I still struggle to take photos of my failures,
I think I asked you that question.
You did?
Yeah.
But don't.
I'll ask you
yeah.
again. Do you have any failures that you've shown me? But I think it's because we were talking about it. We were talking about what makes a good course. And I think we've had this discussion like many a times, particularly like when I go to a course, I'm like, oh, how was that course? And like, what did you enjoy about it? And one thing that I find is like a consistent theme for every course that I go to is I find the biggest takeaways for two reasons, right? But like, it's always when the educator shows their failures and shows the not perfect cases. And like, I think it's a theme that I carry a lot on the podcast, a lot of things that I do on my Instagram, and I'll come back to this as well about a recent case. But I always say, like, you learn little when things go right and everything when things go wrong. And so to go to a course where someone shows you textbook perfect and you're like, wow, that's awesome. And then you go back on Monday and you try it and you're like, it didn't work. They made it look so easy, but why didn't it work in my hands? And so like they can teach you textbook perfect, but that textbook perfect was it was forged from years of them refining, reiterating, reassessing, redoing to get to that point. And so, yes, they can teach it to us the textbook perfect way, but we ourselves also have to go through that same process of refining, reassessing, reiterating, redoing to get to it. And so there's almost much more value when the educator shows the not textbook perfect cases, being like, this is what happens when you don't do this. Or this was a case where I didn't actually do this. And then when you're able to pinpoint those things, like as a student, I think you learn so much more from those tips and tricks. And even recently I was at like Lucas Lassman's course, like incredible like clinician, right? But he's up and I said one of my favorite things that I thought was like made me respect him a lot as a clinician. Well, he was standing up on stage and he's just like, I'm constantly evolving. And yes, I've been like, I lecture internationally, but I'm constantly updating my slides and my presentations. And the stuff that I taught 4 or 5 years ago. He's just like, don't quote me on that. I disagree with what I did 4 or 5 years ago because 5 years down the line, I know so much better than I did 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm like, that's a really good sign of a good educator where they're like constantly refining their craft and they're not dead set in this is the way that I've done it for the last 20 years and I'm not going to stray from it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to learn from when things don't go right. And even when you say like you're mentoring, like you see the things that people struggle with, right? It's like it's because you've been there and done that. And like we'll learn was like, oh, this is what happens when like you'll say to me, like when you don't take enough, like a big enough bite of your suture, it's like it's going to tear through. Or like this is what's going to happen if you like pull it too tight. Like this is what happens. Like you learn so much more from when things don't go right. Mm.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Mm. My other point that I was going to build on is you were saying about how like it's hard to take a photo to like immortalize that moment.
Yeah.
And it made me think because literally it was just yesterday I posted because someone asked me on Instagram, they're just like, oh Herika, like how do you handle mistakes?
Yeah.
And I did like an Instagram post on it and I was like going through, I was like, oh, posting it, but I'm like, I don't want it just to be like text heavy.
Yeah.
Like let me put some photos in and let me find things. That's just to keep it interesting. And I was just looking through my photos. I was like, and there's one that I posted that, yeah, it was uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm exposing myself so much by posting this. But in some ways, it's kind of like empowering, like to take that power. You know how you say, like, when you immortalize it and you put it up on a screen and you frame it and it makes you uncomfortable when you kind of hate it, but almost to kind of like take power over it again because it's like, it was bad, but then you kind of have that redemption arc from fixing it as well. And so the case that I was talking about was, remember, it was like me doing like a full arch of preps. And it was like my very first case and still figuring out the things when people just like prep the deep. And I didn't realize like, people can just tell you like prep it. But I think I'd done it equi-gingival and then I'd put my retraction cords in. I was probably a bit aggressive with my retraction cords as well, but then I didn't prep it further. And so then took my scans, got my lab work back, inserted it, and I was like, oh, they're all super gingival, right? And it being like, holy crap, like this is unacceptable. And in that moment I'm there, like I didn't really have anyone like in the room with me or like any senior mentors or anything. And so the only reason I took a photo was because I took a photo and sent it to my brother. And I was just like, Paul, help, right? And I was like, and I'm lucky that like, okay, I'm very fortunate in the position, like, worst comes to worst, I've got my brother on the other side of the country just to send a photo to. And then I was like, oh my God, like, what do I do? And I remember sending it. And then like, he's like, okay, you're just going to have to re-prep it. And it's what I ended up doing. And ended up fixing it and ended up getting a really good result. But I learned so much from that mistake.
Yeah.
But it's on my phone. And so it's like, you said, like, every time I scroll past it, I'm like, oh, I hate this photo.
Yeah.
This is a reminder of when you didn't do it right. But at the same time, it's like, now I know.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And everyone loves a good redemption arc, right?
100%,
Yeah.
right?
To know that you made that mistake,
Mm.
but now you know how to fix that mistake. And so if you ever come across that case again, number one, hopefully you don't make the same mistake again.
Yeah.
But even if you do make that same mistake again, because even you might just have a day where you just have a lapse in concentration or whatever, at least you know how to fix it.
That's it, right? Knowing how to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, my growth was also stemming from insecurities of what happens when something does fail, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well, if my implant fails, well, what do I do?
Mm.
And I remember Alvin saying it so casually. He's like, well, just dig it out and put in a new one.
Mm.
And it's almost like the thought hadn't even entered my mind that you could do something like that,
Mm.
even though I very well knew that, you know, it was possible and that you could.
Yeah.
But he said it so casually
Mm.
that I was like, oh, was I just dumb for not thinking of this, you know?
Mm.
So that kind of spurred me on to like further education along with Alvin and traveling around the world and stuff to learn like, okay, well, if I lose an implant, there's probably gonna be some bone loss. Let's learn bone grafting.
Yeah.
And then after learning bone grafting, I was like, oh, the soft tissue is kind of a problem sometimes. Let's learn soft tissue grafting, you
Yeah.
know? And so it was this constant continuation of furthering myself almost to outrun my mistakes or to be able to fix my mistakes. Um, and I'm kind of getting nervous because it's kind of like, well, at what point can I, at what point can I keep outrunning my mistakes, Yeah, like at one point it's like, okay, this is kind of the end of the line now.
Well, do you know what? It's a funny story, but one of our good friends, and I guess, I don't know, how would you describe Nitish? Like, he's a beloved member of like,
He's kind of like the really friendly, soft uncle.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we all love Nitish.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
obviously helps you guys with like all your guides and your stackable guides and like expert in like the 3D printing god and everything. But he made this as a joke, but like I've been attending his course in New Zealand as well. And like someone asked the question about like, oh, how long do you quote for like an implant, right? And he's just like, everyone always says the like classical 10 to 15 years or something. And he said it as a joke, but he's just like, and then I got to 15 years and then I moved countries. And then he's like, and I worked there for 15 years and then guess what? I moved countries again. And obviously he said it as a joke, but he's just like, if you move, you never end up having to face the problem. So maybe that's the next part.
The next part, move.
So just move.
Gotcha. Yeah. Melbourne.
You all know that if there's one thing I am super passionate about and always advocate for on our podcast, it is our mental well-being as dentists. There's no denying that our profession can demand so much from us, and it can drain us physically, emotionally, socially, and mentally. And some days it can all just feel a little too much. This is where our friends at Dental Practitioner Support come in. Whether you're new to dentistry or have been practicing for years, Dental Practitioner Support is here to offer guidance, reassurance, and a safe space to talk about whatever it may be that's weighing heavy on your heart. They provide 24-hour services that are completely confidential and independent, so you know that you will always have someone to turn to. Whatever your scenario may be, Dental Practitioner Support is just one call away. And so, in case you ever need it, save the number 1-800-377-700 or visit their website at dpsupport.org.au. Remember, as we say time and time again on the podcast, you are never alone, and we really are all in it together.
I think it comes full circle again where I remember talking to some people about how they're really interested, especially a lot of new grads. They see all these big cases on Instagram, right? And they're kind of rearing to go and they want to do those big cases, just like I did. Like I wanted to do those bigger, more complex, cooler cases as well. But then because I've been to so many courses overseas and I've heard a lot of experienced lecturers talk about their cases. When I see their cases, half of the beauty of their cases is knowing when to do treatment. And I've noticed that a lot of them, even though I'm sure they've done like plenty of big cases, they're always really conservative. And I think if we circle back slightly, back to me outrunning my mistakes, it's now going, okay,
Let's do less.
let's do less.
Yeah.
Because if this goes wrong, I don't know if I can fix it. I don't know if anyone can fix it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I can see how those more experienced than me, those professors, those lecturers who do go globally and lecture and have all these like titles and awards to their name, like even they have things that they probably can't fix. And so they've become more conservative instead. And so I think I'm starting to come to that point where I see my clinical limit or what's possible clinically in the world, full stop. And I go like, well, maybe for this particular case, maybe we shouldn't do this because if it were to fail, what's the backup plan?
Yeah. And we've talked about this before as well. And I remember it actually being something that Bharat brought up in my episode with him, which was actually recorded like a whole year ago. But he's just like, the more you do dentistry, and we've said this a lot, like it's kind of those senior dentists go through that, like it's almost like the life cycle of a dentist is you start off doing very conservative work because you don't know better.
Yeah.
And then you upskill to know, like to learn all these things that you didn't know. And then you kind of come full 360 and you do less work because you know better now, right?
Yeah.
And then I remember Brett saying the same thing. It's just like, yeah, like they have the capacity to like do all this really complex work, but nothing's more rewarding than preventative dentistry or minimally invasive dentistry or working with a child or working with someone in their like whilst they're quite young to prevent them ever needing to get to the point of a full mouth rehab all on X, right? And so yes, it's cool to kind of like to do those procedures, but then you kind of do all of it
Yeah.
and you recognize also like the impact and how invasive it is and like the risk involved with it as well. It's like actually ideally if we can avoid that entirely, that would be ideal, right?
Yeah.
It kind of makes me also wonder about like the trajectory of our profession, because I think this was in like another episode that I recorded. I think it was John Hagliosis, like one of my earlier episodes as well, where it's like you talk to like these dentists who have been out for like 20, 30, 40 years and kind of seen like all the new advances in dentistry. And it's like, what's to say that what we do right now doesn't become obsolete
Yeah.
in like another 10 years? And so like, what's to say that the things that we think are like gold standard now or like the top kind of the highest quality work or like highest services you could offer a patient doesn't just become like archaic and barbaric in a few decades.
Yeah.
Hey?
This is something that I thought about not too long ago. I remember doing an AOX course. And honestly, this course is probably on me. I probably wouldn't do this kind of work because it involves zygos and all sorts of like stuff that I consider probably maybe max territory at this point. I think some really good dentists are doing that sort of work and it works really awesome, but it's probably a little bit too much for me, right?
Yeah.
Or never say never,
No, no.
but probably too much for me at the moment.
We'll just take another trip with the boys
Yeah.
for you to come back.
Next year, let's go.
Yeah.
But I remember Dan Holtzclaw, one of these like zygo gods, like right of today, he talks about how he started doing zygomatic implants like 10, 15 years ago. And these were to save normal AOX cases that had failed, right? So he was rescuing these cases with zygos and teres, which was groundbreaking at the time. And now 10, 15 years later, he's fixing zygo and pterygoid cases with more complex zygo cases. And I'm kind of thinking in my head is like, man, if this person is seeing this cycle, this trend, where this new type of dentistry is being introduced to fix a complex problem with a more complex solution, and now he's fixing that complex solution with something even more complex. Where do you go from there? You know? And so I think, you know, even he's probably going to be at a point where, man, if we could just cycle back to something simpler, but a lot of the times he's getting the hardest of the hardest cases, you know, and you have no choice but to do, you know, this super complex work out of necessity for the patient. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, so I don't know where the future of dentistry is kind of going now, because there is a lot of big complex work that we're doing these days. Like the average dentist now is like really skilled and are taking on these bigger and bigger cases, right? But what does that mean for the patient further down the track? And my only hope is that all of us collectively as a dental community, we all outrun our mistakes and we've learned something new or this new technology that we can implement in the future for these patients.
Yeah. We're in a unique position where you know me and you know like how I work and you've worked alongside me and you've mentored me.
I think because our mentor-mentee relationship was kind of so smooth, it kind of just clicked. I wasn't actively thinking about it a lot, but it was something you brought up with me even today. It was like, you did an implant case yesterday and he's done a good job, but I didn't articulate that to you. And then I was asking you help with social media stuff because I'm a dinosaur, right? And you were like, I'm not going to help you until you say I did a good job. And and my response to you was like, oh, if I didn't say you did terrible, it meant that you did pretty okay.
You're like, if I didn't say anything, it means you didn't do a terrible job.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
And in
Said that.
And in hindsight, hearing that back now, I was like, no, I really should give Erica her flowers and
Yeah.
like actually compliment her.
Mm,
Because I remember Alvin
mm.
giving me my compliments, and that was really helpful for me because I was very much the same as you.
Yeah.
I was cautious, I was anxious, I needed that mentorship, I needed that help.
Mm,
I should be a little bit more like Alvin and,
mm,
you know, say like, hey, look, you did a great job, Erica.
Mm.
Like this and this was awesome.
Mm.
Yes, we learned a few things here, but yeah, the whole thing was good. The whole thing was actually, the whole thing was good, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. There was
Yeah.
like not much to comment on at all.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, I recognize that was something that I need to take away and to be a better mentor or even
Mm.
person in general, really, just complimenting people more.
It's not necessarily complimenting.
But at least
I
encouraging.
think it's encouraging.
Yeah.
And like I've told you about it as well before, actually. And maybe it's just our generation
Yeah.
being soft. Right? That's what you guys would say,
Same.
right? But
I was a softie back in the day. Yeah.
but it's like when I did that the talk for DPOC, the Dental Practice Owners Conference, remember? And I was telling you about like the dot points that I gave for it about like what makes our generation the way that we are. And there's frustrations with like practice owners or like mentors and senior dentists as well, where but like Gen Z get labeled as being like the soft generation or entitled or sensitive, all those kinds of things. But there's like a lot that like influences that as well. And maybe it's because of all the noise that is online and the imposter syndrome and the comparison, being overstimulated, overwhelmed. I think we're also very like harsh and critical. But I think as a new grad, there's that level of insecurity where you're still developing your confidence, and particularly when like taking on a case for the first time. Like people say, like it's just like what you said about like, you know, one of your other mentees where you like your first case needs to kind of be an easy slam dunk case and pick the low hanging fruits to build up your confidence as well. And I kind of made that comment to you like tongue in cheek, right? Because I was just like, I felt okay with it.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was important for me to just be proud of myself and to feel like I did a decent job.
Yeah.
I was just teasing me. I was just like, you didn't even tell me I did a good job.
No, I get it. Message her. Message received. Yeah.
I'm gonna
but I get it.
record this and play it back
yeah.
to you, right?
But you're right. Like not everyone's going to be as resilient
Mm,
as yourself. Like you gave yourself a pat on your own back,
mm.
right? And then I guess asked me for the pat on the back. But
Yeah.
some people
Yeah.
not hearing those words just automatically, almost
Yeah.
instantly straight after the job is done,
Mm.
getting that positive reinforcement after they did do a good job is like they need that, right? And
Well, yeah.
and it's a confidence builder for sure. So that next time when they go into their next implant case, it's like, oh, I've got this, you know, like what I did was good. Alan said it was all right. Like I'll be fine.
Yeah. Actually, sorry, coming back to like that point that I had made about, and this is probably more just like an interesting, I don't know if it's a psychological thing or but just like differences of generations and stuff. And I think like when I like pinpointed it, it was the difference between feedback cycles and like short-term versus long-term feedback cycles. Did I talk to you about it?
Yes, I was about to allude to that actually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe this is, and I think I'll talk about it and like explain it to our listeners as well, because when I figured this out, I think it helped. And like was talking to like those senior dentists or those practice owners, it helped create like empathy or understanding from both fronts. Like, do you agree?
Yeah.
Where it's just like the difference between like previous generations is long feedback cycles where it's like delayed gratification.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily expect a result immediately and you're willing to wait, or that you're used to waiting for an outcome, whether it be like, you know, if you wanted information, you had to like go hunt for it, right? Or if you were working in a workplace, maybe this was what it was like for you as a new grad, where no news is good news. Like if I didn't say, this is exactly what you said to me, like if I didn't say anything, it means you didn't do a terrible job, right? And that's kind of like that long feedback cycle that you're used to. Whereas for our current generation, like we're all glued to our phone. We're like the ADHD generation of like instant gratification, instant feedback. It's like input equals output, input equals output, input equals output, because that's just how the world processes information now online and digitally. And it ends up translating into real life as well, where unlike previous generations where no news means good news, for us it's like, oh my God, he didn't say anything. He's pissed at me. Like, oh my God, I haven't heard anything. They're annoyed. they're disappointed in me. Like it's the end of the world, and you kind of end up spiraling and overthinking it because you expect, and it's not our fault, but it's just the product of just society and how things are. But just you know, I guess just what we're used to. I don't know what the solution for it is, but like understanding that kind of just helped me empathize a little bit of like, oh, why senior? And like, you know, understanding of like, it's not that Alan's needs this, but it's just this is the way that he's used to things, or like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think in a way that's a solution in itself. Just understanding
understanding,
that
right?
means
Yeah.
that you're going to be a little bit more empathetic, like you
Mm,
said, and
mm,
just a little bit more patient
mm,
with that person because you know
mm,
their perspective and where they're coming from and
mm,
how they say things or the lack of saying something
mm,
doesn't necessarily mean something bad. It was kind of like them and that generation, you know,
mm,
and you kind of have to like read in between the lines and
mm,
decipher that, oh, okay, everything's actually okay. Like,
mm,
you know, Alan's saying nothing and not giving me any praise. The
mm.
fact that he said nothing
Nothing.
bad, that's
It's a
good.
good
That's actually
thing.
good, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
Mm,
think
mm,
it goes both ways where I
mm.
should take a page out of that and go
Yeah.
like, oh, Erica is from another generation.
Yeah.
Maybe I should be understanding and be like, hey, she does need that feedback loop.
Yeah.
I should be encouraging and
Yeah.
compliment her and
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's good. We're always learning in the same way that like you teach me implants and I teach you how to post a reel, right?
Yeah. I remember you showing me how to set up a link tree, and I was like, what's going on here? It's like, Erica, I can't find the button. And you're like, did you scroll down properly? And I was like, oh.
Well, like, even when you, what was it yesterday? What you came in to interrupt me about?
Yeah.
Well, no, so what you came in immediately after my case was you're just like, isn't Instagram, aren't posts meant to be square? But this is like a 4x5. And I'm like,
Oh,
they've been 4x5 for like a year.
I'm being outed here. Like I'm on social media, but I have no idea how to use it. Yeah. Gosh.
But it goes both ways. Like we're learning something from everyone.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we wrap up the podcast with like a question that I ask like all my guests, which you're probably familiar with as well, where it's, you know, obviously we have these conversations day in, day out. We've alluded to a lot of like conversations that we have with people that have like stuck with us or like left an impact that resonate with us. I kind of wanted to ask like, were there any other stories or any other conversations that you've had recently with people, something that's stuck?
That's stuck
That you
recently.
feel like would be good for our graduate dentist audience to hear?
I feel like I have all these small epiphanies and then I
Mm.
articulate it to you like straight away
Yeah.
and then I forget about it. And now that you've asked me on the spot,
put you on the spot.
I can't think of anything.
That's okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of something that Albert would have taught me
Mm,
because I feel like he's like
mm,
he's also one of my big mentors, teaches me a
mm.
lot about occlusion and, um, you know, all that sort of more rehab sort of related stuff rather than.
Albert's also so full of words of wisdom.
Yeah, right. He's like a
He's like the
guru.
guru.
Yeah, yeah. I forget he's so young. He's like still in his 30s, but he speaks like he's got
He carries that
decades of wisdom.
gravity.
Yeah, yeah. So you listen when Albert speaks.
100%
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of one of his words of wisdom, but
Mm.
like my mind's just going blank right
There's
now.
so many. Like when I think
Yeah.
of Albert, it's very much like Albert has his phrases.
Yeah.
When I remember, like as a new grad, it was just like, oh, under reduction is the biggest sin. Like, and I always think of that. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, under reduction is a sin. That's what Albert says. Or like he always talks about how like that's why they call it dental practice,
Yeah.
because you're practicing it, right? But he's got a lot of those little gems
Yeah.
that kind of stick.
Oh, I think I got one that's relevant from
Yeah.
Albert.
Yeah. Yeah.
The one that he says a lot is when the student is ready, the master will appear.
Yeah.
So I think that ties in nicely with
With the whole episode.
the whole
hey?
episode. Yeah. Like of getting mentorship and all of that.
Mm.
And you were saying that, you know, you had to, you know, the mentee and the mentor, they kind of have to gel together
Mm.
to be able to have some kind of a relationship
Mm.
for that relationship to work well and for you to be able to like learn from each other well, right?
Mhm.
And so I think for a new grad or a recent grad that's listening to something like this, it's like you kind of have to mold yourself into someone who is open-minded
Yeah.
to receiving knowledge and also understanding that these senior dentists don't owe you anything.
Yeah.
They're not paid to mentor you a lot of the time. If you're paying them, then okay, great. That's the relationship that you've decided to go down. But if you guys gel well, then fantastic. And the reason why I gel well with Alvin and Albert is because I think we come from just similar backgrounds in general.
Yeah.
In terms of like our family upbringing, even where we live like less than 10 minutes away from each other.
Yeah.
Like that helps,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like we work within the same clinics, we go through the same struggle. So we kind of relate to each other on a personal level.
Mhm.
And that's also extended into like clinical stuff as well. And so I think that really helps, right? Yeah.
And kind of like circling it back to, I guess, like one of the very first stories I got you to share in today's episode. It's like I think that's such a beautiful like phrase to kind of tie it all together. I'm glad you shared that one because it is one that Albert says a lot, but also like your attitude towards like landing yourself your job to that's really now kind of been the springboard for this huge career trajectory. I was like, no, career progression. I was like, is that the right word?
Right.
Career progression was in your application, right? Your cover letter where you said like, I'm willing to be broken down and be rebuilt, and you're more than rebuilt. As I said, it's just like it was a springboard to get you to where you are right now.
Yeah,
But you were the student, you were ready.
that's right. And it kind of feels weird now because now I'm teaching new grads or recent grads within our group.
Mm-hmm.
And then more recently, we've just launched the implant course as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of feels weird going from still remembering what it was like to be a new grad
Yeah.
to then teaching as well.
Mm-hmm.
And to a degree, there's like this level of imposter syndrome
Yeah.
because you still remember what it was like to be there. And it feels weird to have gone this far in the journey. And then looking back, you're like, oh, wow, kind of came pretty far.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also still so much more to go at the same time as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's been an absolute ride. And it feels weird teaching, but getting a lot more comfortable with it now, and now extending it to the public with like an implant course as well.
Yeah.
So pretty excited, but nervous as well.
It's like the next
Yeah.
big story, next big chapter. It was good. It's fun. And I think that's kind of, again, I keep tying it back. You tell me this. You're like, this is your podcast thing where you're
Yeah.
like, Erica, do the podcast thing where
Yeah.
you tie it back, right?
Yeah. Like your superpower, it's like, I've forgotten our train of thought. Erica, do the thing.
It's like in our normal day-to-day
Yeah.
conversations that you're like, do the podcast thing, just
Thing.
rewind it,
Yeah.
circle it back, right? Doing full circle and coming back to my opening sentence of the podcast where I said, it's been really nice. It's kind of fun in the same way that like I was building the podcast and you were always kind of in the background and you'd be like, oh, like, have you thought of doing this with like the podcast? Why didn't you like, there have been multiple guests, right? And you were just like, why don't you go interview like this person? Why don't you go interview that person? Or why don't you try like making it into a video or something? In the same way that you've kind of watched me build the podcast, it's been really nice to have be on like the flip side, or like for it to go both ways, and now kind of watch you build the implant course and to get to be involved in like, helping you.
Yeah,
You're like
yeah.
being a dinosaur.
Yeah, where you're the social media mentor.
Yeah, and I'm like, and you're like designing your graphics, and I'm like, have you heard of Canva?
Oh, that was pivotal. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, this website, I can design stuff on it. And it looks really good.
It's cool.
Yeah,
It's
it's
really,
cool.
you've done a really good
Yeah.
job with it all.
Well, I actually took half your design
Yeah.
and then it was like half your design and
Yeah.
you made it pizzazzed it and made it look nice. And then I just kind of taken what you already designed, the skeleton of that, and just like run with it.
But it's fun. And like it's fun, and it's kind of what we were saying about like working in a environment where you've got like, even just non-clinically able to like bounce those ideas and to collaborate. But I also think it's like a really special part of like friendships, and what I really appreciate about our friendship as well. It's just like it's fun being friends with people that are also building things and kind of just growing together. And yeah, seeing us all, I don't know, it's exciting. We keep saying this, right? I'm like, I feel like 2025 has been a bit of a rough year. Like we've both kind of said it's been a rough year.
That's right, yeah.
But I have just like this optimism where I feel like 2026 is going to be a really good year.
It's going to be a good year.
Just the vibes. The vibes are right.
Yeah.
We're manifesting it. But yeah, I think stay tuned for 2026 because big things are coming, hey?
Yeah, super keen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining me on this episode with our tea and our cute little setup and our first in-person recording. Maybe our first, maybe not our last. We'll see where things
Cool. Thanks for having me, Erica.
It'll be good.
And thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Graduate Dentist Podcast. I really hope you've taken something valuable away from this episode and that you feel heard, you feel seen, inspired, and optimistic about our journey as graduate dentists. As I always say, we're in it together, so let's spread the word, let's share the love, send this to your friends, your colleagues, and those who are on a similar path who you feel may benefit from being part of the community. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so send me a message, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time for another episode.